report as we speak.
I got it. Welcome everyone to this call by Friends of the African Union and the African Diaspora Directorate. We created this call with the assistance of EdFood Foundation, and the African Diaspora Directorate was created in 2019 to be the entity that would be for all of us in the global African diaspora.
Mistress? They didn't party together. John Doe here had a blood alcohol level 1.7. She didn't have a trace.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. The Friends of the African Union and its work with its founding members of the African Diaspora Directorate was, the whole idea was that we in the United States of America, who are 1.25 trillion GDP, would rate as the largest economy and the people of African descent, even above Mexico. We'd be the 13th largest economy in the world. And as such, we needed an agenda and a tool for us all to come together. And so the African Diaspora Directorate was created as part of a unified movement to unite not only with the people of the African Union from all over the world that have similar goals and interests and skills, talents, and collective goals, but also with allies who support the people of the African Union in meeting these challenging times. Now, this was done in 2019 before COVID. And so we didn't know the challenging times that would come to us. And it builds on and seeks to accelerate the implementation of past and existing continental and African diaspora initiatives for growth and sustainable development, with a goal of Africa as a strong, united, resilient, and influential global player and a partner for us in the USA. Yes, we're partisan in that to create a strategic relationship between the African Union and the United States of America, a relationship that has not previously been put together. There is no strategic relationship between the United States and the African Union like that there is in and between the European Union and the African Union, in which the European Union's people of African descent have a vehicle in which to affect policy between the European Union, the third largest economy in the world, and the African Union with its $3 trillion economy. Whereas we, in the world's #1 economy in the world, do not have the same infrastructure. That is our goal this year. Our goal on August 25th is to create the framework, in fact, around that. And so one of the main tools that we were counting on to bring that about was the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. So today's agenda will start with an update on the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent in the United Nations. We'll follow an update on the Civil Society Plan of Action and the creation of that Permanent Forum on People of African Descent in the United Nations, and a plan for Africa that is being developed under the name the Marshall Plan for Africa. And yes, we will, over the next month, be making the necessary changes to bring that in line in terms of terminology. But for those of us who are working on the plan and those who hear it, they understand immediately when you say Marshall Plan, what you're talking about in aid assistance and vital assistance. So that's why we use the terminology. But by August 25th, we look to have changed that terminology. And 3, an update on the Universal Periodic Review of the United States of America in light of the United States government actions as late as July 13th. What we thought was the direction of the United States. Of course, their actions last Thursday bring some doubt into mind on that. And then 4th, the upcoming actions of the United States government in relationship to Executive Order 13985 and how that relates to us and how we lay out going from the US government and the various federal government departments, and how we are started with agriculture, then picked up with commerce, the Veterans Administration, small business agency, et cetera, leading to 5, the upcoming UN Food Summit and our actions in August and leading up to that with the USDA and other intergovernmental agencies that are in place, leading up to COP 26 and UNESCO, which is talking about the fate of humanity. In that conference in November, setting out our agenda with UNESCO in March of 2022 in our plans and actions with the UNESCO clubs, centers, and associations, as well as the United Nations Association, and then talking about our coming week's agenda day to day. So that's my opening statement. I welcome you all to the call. My name is Herschel Daniels. I am the chairman of Friends of the African Union. I'm a managing director of the African Diaspora Directorate. You can find us on the web. You can Google Friends of the African Union, and we're in Wikipedia, our website, friendsoftheafricanunion.com. The African Diaspora Directorate. You can find us on Facebook, where this is landing as our daily stream now at hashtag AFDIDI2063. That's also our Twitter. Then you can also get us on the website at the African Diaspora Directorate.org through the blackfolksplan.org to make it short for you, blackfolksplan.org and or AFDIDI.org. So we're going to start off today, and as I said, the permanent form of people of African descent, but we're first going to go to give us to say any news updates that anybody wants to give us of actions in this past week. His Excellency Sharif, is there anything that you would like the floor to give to us or in discussion till we get to you?
Well, if you would allow me, this is Andrew Williams Jr. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation to join us, His Excellency Sharif. Let me update you first, Herschel, that just in the last 24 hours, since His Excellency was a guest here on the show yesterday, we have put forth now a potential collaborative where we can utilize our African Union diaspora legacy project framework that was put into place, as you know, Herschel, back in 2012, 2013, that Queen Mother referenced in us getting them to cut the check. So I believe what we're doing with His Excellency Sharif is cutting our own check. We have billions and trillions of dollars circulating all around us. And by us, I mean all of us collectively. So our task is to funnel that through our own collective resources. So Don Polk, thank you for being here. As I mentioned, Herschel, on Monday, we hope to meet with our representative in Cabo Verde, who is multilingual, because everything that we're doing here has implications beyond just ourselves as members of the African Union. It does, in fact, impact all the people who speak all the languages of the African Union, including Swahili, Arabic, French, Portuguese, etc. So, Minister Sharif, or Excellency Sharif, thank you so much for joining us. Please take this opportunity, if you would, be so kind, understanding that we have a new audience today, to be so kind as to choose to introduce yourself, and not just yourself from a diplomatic standpoint, but from yourself as an economic standpoint, if you would, and your own previous experiences with handling multi-billion-dollar projects in Africa that will provide us with a framework for moving forward. If you'd be so kind, please.
Thank you very much, Your Highness. Greetings to everyone in the platform. And I thank you all for your kind attention. And please pardon me for any shortcomings I come in my deliberations, as I am not a very good public speaker. So
you're speaking to family, so be comfortable.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that makes me more comfortable, because normally in such gatherings, I just mute myself and be a very attentive listener. So knowing that I'm talking to family, it has opened myself up, and I am at home. So I thank you once again for making me feel at home. After listening to yesterday's deliberations and knowing the very ambitious and positive plans that you have for the continent and people of origins from the continent, I am already in various parts of trying to bring meaningful development all over the continent. As we speak now, I have on my table a $9 billion railway line designed from the port of Dakar up to the port of Sudan, and also branching off to the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, which is Spanish, as His Highness rightly stated that we need to have bilingual communications, as the continent comprises of peoples of diverse tongues, which we must also respect and accommodate them as their human right to free interaction and information that they understand in their own ways. So I'm also engaged in facilitating financing for private and public institutions around the world. I have access to non-refundable humanitarian funding, but this is a bit tricky because it has to come with a lot of strings and control measures to make sure that the money, the projects are implemented in order to report back to the financiers so that they can use those certificates to earn their tax leaves for using their monies for their corporate social responsibility, as I heard yesterday from our moderator, which was right. We also have financing that is accessible to every enterprise that can secure a standby letter of credit from at least one of the 100 top-rated banks in the world. If you have it, you can have from a minimum of $25 million up to $1.5 billion. But above $1 billion is going to be in tranches, in phases. So we have in all these things, we also have projects that are qualified for the type of funding like your veterans projects are planning to do. We have lands available in the Gambia for homecoming Africans and people of African origin to come home and turnkey build very luxurious holiday homes, residential homes to stay. So the veterans program of trying to provide good primary health care, I want to mention this to you. Gambia has one of the finest primary health care systems in West Africa. And our government is very supportive in anyone who is trying to bring in cutting-edge technology in medical and healthcare. There are so many incentives to help you make that. And we can also help anchor your telephony technology, which you want to bring in based on the telecom and internet security as an outpost station into the Gambia. I have sent a letter that is related to that because one British company approached the Gambia wanting to bring in military-grade technology called wide space. This is broadband internet that is routed through the wide space band of the television signals, which are not used. So they route this internet through those wide space signals and get signals of internet to the most remote parts of the country. And I've got two letters, one from the Gambia government and one from the Senegalese government that are interested in this technology to make sure that the entire geographical landscape of their country is accessible. Most importantly, for agricultural use, because you know, AI, artificial intelligence machines, they need such type of connectivity without losing signals so that robotic farm machines could work at any time and all over the place. So with this, I think now the ball is in our court. We have financing from both sides, and Cape Verde, as His Highness rightly mentioned, is a very good offshore banking location where now most of our African-American celebrities are thinking of moving to and get homes there. I've already known one celebrity who's built an international recording studio there for the African continent to get cutting-edge technology in music recording. So with these few developments, I would like to implore with the wide membership of this room and all those listening that the potential to make our people comfortable in the continent is there, and the financial opportunities are numerous. Thank you very much for your kind attention and allowing me this space.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I will put into the chat your own LinkedIn profile. But as you know, in the United States and in the Western world, there's so much negativity about dealing with the credibility of people on the African continent. However, in your case, you have demonstrated time and again your ability to deliver not just local solutions for a few $100s, but could you please explain to us briefly, with all humility, the types of projects with which you have been involved with and what timeline that has begun with? Thank you.
Okay, I am currently working on building an MRO, a special repair hangar that all aircrafts flying through the west coast of Africa, if they need any repairs, they can come down to Gambia and get into this MRI and get any type of repairs. I mean, any aircraft that can land on our tarmac. It depends on whatever, even an Antonov, the biggest cargo plane in the world. If it can land there and needs repairs, we can do it. We are working on that right now, and I have approval from the government. I'm currently also working with the Ghanaian Ministry of Aviation to repair all their aerodromes and the possibility of building a new one. We have met the minister. I am working on that with one defense industry in Canada, an aviation defense specialist called Felron Defense. We are working aggressively in establishing these aerodromes and possibly a new airport in Ghana. So in Sierra Leone also, we had and we are working aggressively to get ferry services to link the international airport to the city of Freetown. I had earlier sent in South African shipbuilders that I am representing throughout the ECOWAS called Paramount Group. The marine section is called Nordic Africa. If you check Nordic Africa, I have taken 5 different countries to Nordic Africa to get specialized naval vessels, tugboats, dredgers, and we are working on getting ferries for Sierra Leone. I'm trying to consolidate the financing to make that thing a possibility because Sierra Leone is removed, the capital of Sierra Leone is removed from the international airport by the bay, and it needs constant and reliable ferry service to make the airport fully accessible to the city traffic. We're also working on that. And in Sierra Leone also, I am now working with the government to get a 1,200 kilometer railway line connecting all the major towns of Sierra Leone to the city. We might also address a corridor railway because we don't have a normal shipping line running across the west coast of Africa, connecting the ECOWAS cities. We are planning a corridor railway from the city of Dakar through Banjul, Bissau, Conakry, Freetown, Monrovia, Abidjan, Accra, up to Lagos, Nigeria, and then to Abuja. We are working on that. That's an existing plan of the ECOWAS Commission, Transportation Commission, which is a planned route, but we are trying to secure financing to establish that as well. In the Gambia here, I am currently working with the government to bring in an additional 1.5 terabyte submarine cable as a backup to the Wyland submarine cable that we already have, ACE cable we already have from France, which is of a very low bandwidth. And if we want to accommodate cutting edge specialists in internet technology, telecommunications, we need to have a very, very wide bandwidth of connectivity so that the African continent's new phase of economic development could be fully accessed, and security, as the moderator highlighted yesterday, is of paramount need, and we need the expertise of military-grade experts to come to the continent and also help us not allowing cyber attackers to come and get a safe haven or nomadic, digital nomadic cyber attackers in our country. That is very important. We need to track them, pin them, and stop the aggression they do to the cyber security of the world. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, sir. Just so that the people on the line understand that you say these are projects already in progress, could you please share with us any large projects that you have previously facilitated over the last 5 or 10 or longer years?
Large projects in dollar volume would be very small if you rate it in dollar amount. But according to our own local currencies in West Africa, the projects we have rolled out are rather large. That is, we have successfully implemented a special education system whereby schools get access to internet, but we were challenged for providing a tablet to every student in the country. That is a challenge we are faced with, and without that, we cannot fully harness that opportunity that is rolled out, and which we are also bringing on board to the veterans associations of African origin if they are interested in coming on board. This is one project that is already ongoing.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so thank you. So let's deconstruct where parallels happen. So we run from Wichita, Kansas, which was stood up yesterday as the state of Kansas was stood up within the context of the World Conference of Mayors. All right. And hold on a second. We want to, we're going to hear a report from Kansas on yesterday's event that stood up the state of Kansas and Friends of the African Union in Kansas in Wichita as our center for our MRO operations. And in the chat, for people who don't know, that MRO stands for Maintenance, Repair, Overhaul market, okay? And it's a market that is somewhere north of $180 billion a year right now. And FAU supports the AU Single African Air Transport Market, which is actually a flagship project of the African Union Agenda 2063. And so we are very much interested in the discussion based on our discussion with one of the top 5 American manufacturers who's involved in the MRO marketing. We would definitely be able to have a discussion based on the discussion that we just had with Don Graves last week of the Commerce Department on creating a workforce development program in the Gambia around establishing an MRO relationship on a bilateral basis with our expertise domestically, with your government, and in particular, putting that in place as part of what we're doing with veterans who are have the expertise to operate an MRO in the country.
Well, before you go forward, Herschel, I do want to make it clear that we're not really here for discussions. We're here for executions of MOUs. So His Excellency Sharif can bring forth the existing in place operating agreements. It will be necessary for you, Herschel, to execute the MOUs between my company here in the United States and his there in the Gambia. Thank you.
No problem. We had agreed to that on the basis of the understanding. And we are looking forward in this coming week to make sure that happens. So that's one area in terms of the MRO. The second area in terms of that you mentioned, talking about white space. Okay. And so I put the link into the chat that talks about the Federal Communications Commission and the knowledge base around white space. And so because of the government ownership of both a cellular channel that was sold and disputed with a Lebanese owner, and because of the government's ownership of that television spacing, we have a conversation for that. And as Andrew said, that's also an executionable item in terms of this week that would, again, work with our Commerce Department, International Trade Administration focus that, like I said, week before last, we had a veterans discussion around that to bring expertise like myself, who used to work at NHTSA 01, and others who have that expertise who are veterans in the United States military who would be willing to retire in a planned unit development that would be in alignment with the work that is already being planned in Africa. And so that we would take a specific focus on that with the Gambia, not the least of which, as Andrew mentioned in the chat, that on May 25th, 2012, in South Africa, the Global African Diaspora Summit concluded with the African governments adopting 5 flagship projects known as the African Union Diaspora Legacy Projects. And so that in terms of implementation of that around your guarantee with a bank that in January of 2022 will become arguably the 5th largest bank in America, which has signed a 4-year, $88 billion agreement for domestic community benefit to create within that the financial instruments that would be supportive of Africans in the African diaspora domestically here in America, but also create the infrastructure under the legacy projects that would be supportive of funding projects like those that you had mentioned from a bilateral basis, which brings us to the discussion of the permanent forum on people of African descent, so that this would be lead projects of civil society in that forum. I look forward to, as Andrew said, executing memorandums of understanding in letters of intent in this coming week to actualize these projects. All right. Andrew, anything that I missed on the discussion about that?
No, but I would like to ask His Excellency Sharif to look into the chat. In Kenya based, there is an organization called AHIABGA that is looking to expand throughout Africa. So for the healthcare system that you have in place, again, I'm in a position to execute letters of intent with you in that organization. And so Don Polk, I'm looking to engage you with the way that we can engage here in Los Angeles, the international trade representative, who you may know, his name is Bobby Hines, who has a specific interest in veterans affairs. So we can move forward to, as I believe, provide the discipline and also the diplomatic and consular muscle to advance these on a basis that will carry us through the remainder of the first 10-year implementation plan of the African Union Agenda 2063. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. I look forward to speaking to you more about that. And specifically, I'm in agreement with anything that moves on paper, where we pretty much eliminate the fluff and all the in-between stuff and just get right down to business. Again, I look forward to getting into those discussions and helping to make some things happen in various areas.
So in that, Don, for the whole idea of the veterans aspect in California is to base it on a statewide program with CalVet.
Yes.
CalVet does not have a Black veterans program. It has a minority veterans program. It has a Native American veterans program, a Hispanic veterans program, a gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender program, a women veteran program, but not a Black veterans program. So on this past Buffalo Soldier National Day, we established formally that initiative within the context of picking up on work that had already been done by Mr. Harris through FAU Sacramento, and to bring that to with CalVet. And we met with the woman who's in charge of CalVet for the whole state about this initiative leading up to that day for first Juneteenth. And then, in this past week on the National Buffalo Soldier Day, and that we made sure that they understood within the context of California that we are standing up a program of action with Africa that works with California veterans to, one, provide business opportunities for veterans, two, provide housing opportunities for veterans, and three, to develop a veterans-based workforce that would be able to take all of the above to the next level.
Well, that is fantastic, and I'll tell you, and on Monday certainly we'll share this. One of my interests is because I'm very I have a good understanding of things that happen positively in the whole Veterans Administration area. So for instance, right now, I can develop something that would make tens of millions of dollars that we can use to support the vets, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I can put that together, and the VA would just simply need to be serious about what they intend to do. And this involves something that they're already doing and that we have capabilities to match. So, so again, I have ways that I can focus on the economic side of things where I can assure money can be generated again in the tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, not fake news numbers just to sound good, but stuff that I can show you proof positive, as well as from an international perspective.
Well, Don, let me ask you, are you familiar with the VBOC, the Veterans Business Outreach Center program?
No,
Okay.
I'm not. Just from a commerce perspective, in fact, I'm working with Mayor Darrell in a specific area since he's a cage code holder. I'll just put it that way. But no, I'm not familiar with that specific unit.
Well, in San Diego, for example, through Global Business Incubation, Emerald Veterans, among our members is Paul Ruffin, who has expertise not just in telecommunication, but former West Point graduate, retired General Arnold Gordon Bray. Both of those have been working diligently for the past 5 years with Hazel Beck. She is the person that is responsible for BBOX here in California and Hawaii. So I will look forward to connecting that dot as soon as possible.
Great, fantastic.
So the whole idea in terms of the highest level of contact that we have in the veterans on the call week before last, just after my surgery, was with the director of partnerships and faith-based partnerships at the Veterans Administration.
Yes.
So the whole idea is to move this on a fast track because taking out of order the issue of Executive Order 13985, where the President of the United States issued an executive order for the addressing issues of economic development.
Yes.
And those issues of economic development are not only racial, but they are also specialized communities. And in those specialized communities are people with disabilities. And the whole 13985 is entitled, advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities throughout the federal government.
Yes.
And so that is a whole of government. It's an ambitious whole of government equity agenda, that says that we are going to face the challenges that we would have, and that would face challenges like access to higher education would amount to additional, for in the coming years, $5 trillion in gross domestic product to the United States economy over the next 5 years. In other words, if he carries this off right, that the economy will grow $1 trillion a year. All right. And so for us, that's why we, from day one, this was the first executive order that he signed on day one. And he says that the government has 200 days in which to put together these plans to bring them to the table for Black folk, Latino and Indigenous and Native American persons, Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and other persons of color, members of religious minorities, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer persons, persons with disabilities. And I would put to you that PTSD from combat is a disability.
Yes.
And it's a disability that people like myself have lived in. I was one of the few lucky ones at the time because from Vietnam, we didn't get treatment and recognition, but I recognized that I needed to be back in a military environment, not being in a civilian environment. Unfortunately, a lot of our veterans today don't have that same knowledge base, and many of them in California can be found on the street because they don't know how to integrate back in to civilian life because they went from being a teenager into the military, into war, and now back on the street and not having the coping skills to deal with that. And so consequently, when we talk about this in California, it's almost a perfect storm of us coming together based on the mayor's signature to that legislation and the county commission putting in place the alternative funding mechanism from the diversion from the county budget that we can meet this executive order where it terms underserved communities refers to population sharing a particular characteristic, and veterans do, as well as geographic communities, we're talking California, that has been systematically denied the full opportunity to participate in aspects of economic, social, and civic life. Okay, and so that we can state a case that addresses those who become part of the military and are veterans who come from an economically, socially disadvantaged community to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's our position and has been our position when we deal with in California. And we look forward, to working with you. And just so you know that, like Andrew, we're working with, GBI, and in terms of that incubation to put that work that has been agreed to do,
Yes.
now implementation. We now have an administration that's ready to what we call cut the check. And now we say cut the check, and it becomes and she was here for a second, but she left apparently, Queen Mother, Dr. Dolores Blakely, and we keep not opening properly in terms of giving some thanks for the Creator for us another day of being here. And I want to let everyone know that I am glad to be with you. Yes, Your Excellency.
Yes, I just wanted to bring this information up. It is now that I realize that through my contacts in the United States, I was requested by a friend to facilitate the visit of one specialist, a veteran, to visit either Guinea-Bissau or the Gambia. And even today, I was working with the government to get a full invitation, fully covered, travel costs and everything. The only worries is about the medical conditions. Just like you rightly mentioned yesterday, you have gone through several heart surgeries. I believe it is you that they were referring to get invited for special programs to be implemented in these two countries. Brother Daniels, I mean.
Yes, yes. We probably have crossed again. The Gambia and Senegal. We are through New Future Foundation, but even more so before COVID, the work that we were doing in the Gambia with the vice president and the mayor. Okay, but we made our choice to go with the president and his aspirations for the government. And like I said, we look forward to working with you and him to implement that, and anything that we can do relative to making that happen. I would make write a letter as Lieutenant Commander Daniels of the Ohio Command of the National Association of Black Veterans to my congressional delegation, in which to host it, that Ohio was the first state in the United States to open a trade office of its own in Africa, in Nigeria.
Great.
And so
I've just shared two letters with His Highness Prince Williams of a request from our Gambia Armed Forces and the Gambia Police Force for equipments that they urgently require. And I have full backing by the government. So before trying other institutions that I might be alien to, I feel more at home putting this on your table, and you see with the other brother who could raise some financing and see what you can do in getting that. I have already requested for an audience with the president to secure a private invitation for you to come and see what could be done with the veterans associations in the Gambia. Thank you.
Well, thank you. But for me, with my 7 heart attacks and 8 stents and spontaneous pneumothorax, in the age of COVID, it would not for me to travel and otherwise. And there's only one hospital in the whole of the continent of Africa and in South Africa that has the heart medical center that I normally would need. But His Excellency Andrew Williams.
I apologize first, but yeah, in that regard, it's actually your credibility and ability to communicate at the highest levels, as you indicate, that would open the door for your ambassador or your representative or liaison next to you. That I would recommend that we consider, again, retired General Arnold Gordon Bray, who actually served in Africa and has a consulting company, but we can take that offline.
That's part of our Monday discussion in terms of that, okay? Because there's certain whenever you deal at this level, just like I dealt with Zimbabwe in 2015, at a certain level, you have to register with the U.S. government. We as American citizens have to register within the government, and that's one of the things that we put the African Diaspora Directorate is registered with the U.S. government with the proper cage codes and to ready to do that. We will talk about this on Monday. We will set the agenda for that discussion on Monday.
Well, actually, I'll inbox you the content that His Excellency Sharif shared with me today, so that we can do our groundwork today and be ready for Monday. But thank you.
Yes. Okay. And just for information's sake for everybody, understand that the Gambia is eligible under the African Growth and Opportunity Act. Okay. And within the countries that the organization, we take this to a different level within the context of just Agora, because the whole idea in the country of the Gambia is to set an agenda that can be a framework to be used within the African Continental Free Trade Area as an ongoing framework for the other member nations in the African Union, and look forward to putting this work into fact. All right. So questions from anyone on the line?
I have one. May I just say something? Relative to Gambia, and listening to what I have heard thus far, I'm a little baffled, and maybe I can get this question answered. So what I've heard today with Mr. Sharif is something which on Monday I'd like to get more clarity, that has something to do with billions and billions of dollars that's available for X. And then if folks, let's say over here, can get some sort of letter of credit, something can happen by way of that. Nothing to really talk about necessarily right now, but I'm going to ask about that. One of the reasons why I'm speaking about that is right now there's a group, and I'm sure you guys know Dr. Gabo, and I was introduced to him just recently after the trip you guys had. So I know there is discussion as well as plans as it relates to a whole hospital unit, et cetera, in Gambia. I've seen the illustrations, I'll just say. And then in addition to that need, and that's a really nice plan. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned before, but I do have a health concern as well. So we're really looking to get involved. But what I don't understand is, why is there no funds? Or why there seems to be no funds available, for instance, to purchase vaccines so that people can get vaccinated in Gambia. So we're actually working, we're going to have some follow-up meetings, because TriStar has the ability to supply vaccines around the world. But I don't understand, with all of those dollars available, why aren't there dollars so that, and Gambia is way low on the totem pole as it relates to dollars available and or people who have been vaccinated to date. So again, if I can understand where the money is and why there's a problem with them getting it, when in fact there's those kind of dollars.
Well,
Hold on. Let me take a couple of answers to you. The GDP of the Gambia is about $2 billion for about 2 million people. Okay, so $1,000 per person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Using Israel as an example, the average cost on a commercial marketplace of a shot is $19 versus America paid $15. Okay, versus African nations who did not have this in their budgetary capacity to pay for the shots. I'm on the CDC, the African CDC calls. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you're looking at 2 million people and that you have to have 2 shots, even at the American rate, you're talking a purchase of 60 million. If you could have purchased it, okay, in the earlier first quarter. And so consequently, how that's working out now in the geopolitics of it, we'll have an offline, because the United States is now.
I was headed there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I was headed there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the United States.
Yep.
Under first place, you have to understand, and people have to understand, that these vaccines did not come out of the blue. Okay.
Exactly.
They've been messenger RNA has been worked on for 30 years. The University of Pennsylvania in 2015 made the breakthrough in messenger RNA in terms of how it could be effective in the human body in 2015. And so they made the license, and up through 2020, what the companies who were taking the lead on this, they were having a hard time raising the funds necessary to carry out the research. But under Operation Warp Speed and Fast and Furious, what the lead company in this received a $955 million grant from the United States government. And money talks. And so within that context, but that was May of 2020. And it was for small scale production. And so, I was part of that, listening into the African CDC, which in June of 2020 was asking those same questions, because they saw it coming up as an issue, because it was intellectual property licensing rights. And so domestically, there was the whole fight. And in particular, this company that received $955 million grant was not the big five. It wasn't even the big 10, not even the big 20. It wasn't in pharma big 20. But what it did when it received that, it received the stamp of approval that it was going to look to receive conditional approval that it could go to the market, and it raised $1.2 billion to create the manufacturing plant that just came online, okay, in the fourth quarter of 2020. Because it now had the money to buy already existing infrastructure building and to make it change over to their manufacturing process. It was really an amazing to be on the sidelines to watch this as we struggled our way through getting the CARES money spent here in Hamilton County and getting the shots domestically.
Yes.
But internationally, there's this great fight that's going on right now between the United States and Europe in particular, because many of these pharma companies that are following behind this licensing right, the United States wants to grant a licensing freedom, okay, for intellectual property, and the Europeans do not.
Well, I think His Excellency Balde wants to respond from the Gambia standpoint. However, what you said is not completely correct. As of yesterday, the World Trade Organization received a no vote from the United States and Europe in that regard. But I'll turn it over to Ambassador Balde. The floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you very much. To answer to the question of Brother Don, I've just got figures in from my son, who is the leading health experts in the country right now, propagating about this COVID pandemic. He just told me that we earlier got 150,000 doses of Johnson & Johnson donated by the United States government.
Yes.
And we are also expecting 200,000 doses extra coming in. But for the Gambia's population, we are targeting to get at least 60% of the 2 million population vaccinated. And this is way, very, very, very low than the target we are expecting.
Yeah.
As far as financing is concerned, we are trapped because IMF stopped the Gambia government from issuing guarantees. And they asked them to look for innovative financing through grants or whatever. But they definitely did not encourage them to issue guarantees. And nowadays, if you don't issue guarantees, even to raise money in the platforms is going to be a bit challenging.
That's correct. Yes, yes.
I already have a banker in the United States who has pledged his own bullion as guarantee on the platforms for my humanitarian projects for the Gambia, and could raise up to 1.75 billion US dollars. The challenge is when I went to our local banks to get them sign that agreement with that particular bank in the United States, they said that amount is way too much above the threshold of even what our central bank could absorb. So that's another challenge we have.
Well, kind of. You can, with that guarantee and it's bullion, there's things you can do on the private sector. You don't need a bank.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
but
in this
the
case
owner of the
on Monday,
the owner of the guarantee told me that I need a local bank to send a letter that the proceeds from the platform and through his collateral, we will only take 40% or 35% of it, and the other 65% should be returned to him. That is what brought in the bank.
So within that context, we're diving into a discussion that needs to happen on Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
And let me just say, Herschel, not just today, but in many days previous that I've listened to conversations, not only do I know you are right in the mix and you speak to people and have at your, I'll just say access to folks who can help make happen what we're talking about. And all of you actually, it's just a matter of putting the pieces together. And yes, the United States, and I've been in meetings at least twice a week with the White House. So I'm listening to certain things that's going on. And there's supposed to be dollars for programs such as Gambia and others. So if we tap into that, we can make some things happen. And part of that is what I'm speaking to as far as solutions for the veterans, because it's not only vaccines, but it's the whole PPE space. And not only are we into that, but I'm an ex-manufacturer. I've been manufacturing products for over 25 years. So I know the whole cut and sew business. Maxine Waters is familiar with me, and Kwaizi and quite a few folks. So there's things we can do, and we can we can cause these people who are talking all that stuff about what they'll do and the whole equity and all of that, we can put it to the test. I mean, so yes, let's talk on Monday.
Well, just to let you know, Don, my role here is as what's called a zero-time solutions facilitator. And so all I suggest is that we are the answer we need. So after this call,
you're right, Andrew.
I'm not confused.
Yes, man. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
All right. So within that context, we said, okay, yeah, and you got to remember, the WTO chief now comes from Nigeria. Okay, it's you know, she ain't confused on what's going on. Okay, and when she called and earlier in July for the G20 leaders to do more. Okay, and they were having their meeting in Italy because G20 this year is under Italy, and they couldn't come to an agreement because of the geopolitics of not only the United States and Europe, but also the geopolitics, the United States, Europe, and China, and Russia. Okay, and so the weaponization of the vaccines is well underway in geopolitics, and we as Black folk here in the United States have not stood up a policy that is our brothers and sisters. So I look forward on Monday to doing that, because you have to understand that one thing that happened on Thursday that yet has to even make it into the news cycle. I don't know if has anyone seen anything in the news cycle about the permanent form on people of African descent going down on Thursday?
Herschel, until you put it in the news cycle, it won't be in the news cycle. There are 5 corporations that own 95% of the world's media. I'm just suggesting that unless we do it, don't expect it to be done.
Yeah.
Well, again, that was the part of the update of bringing it, the experience that we had last year and bringing it to the media about George Floyd on May 25th, when we were doing Africa Week 2020 and George Floyd was killed, and that we made a cry out to the African Union Commission, and that on the 29th of June, on the 29th of May, he responded. The chairman of the African Union issued a letter, a communique that basically boiled down to what's going on over there with our brothers and sisters.
Well, let me ask you, before you go forward, have we finished with today's agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the update to the permanent form on people of African descent was the agenda item. And so to understand what Andrew was just saying relative to creating the news cycle around George Floyd last year, we did. We were part of the 671 civil society organizations who joined forces with the 12 nations of the Africa Group and the Human Rights Council. And on June 17th, 2020, there was a discussion on policing and public safety in regards to people of African descent.
But what I meant to answer your question, the question was asked, you asked whether what happened yesterday is in the news cycle. That is the topic of the day. Have we finished with that topic?
No, we've not finished with the topic, but people have to understand what happened and how previously we got into the news cycle around George Floyd was a unified action that wasn't just us as Black folk, but it was Black folk with our allies around this injustice issue.
But my point for today's agenda, because I am on a time clock, is to address the issue that we haven't before. Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of what happened on Thursday was the United States ran out the clock on the debate on the permanent form, and consequently, there was no permanent form vote based on the objections of Great Britain, the European Union, and the United States. And so when they were defeated on a vote, the United States procedurally ran out the clock so that there was no further time to have a vote. Now, the whole procedure that they did, if not through work of the co-facilitators on Friday, that we were supposed to have a vote on Monday, but I have yet to have that confirmed. It's not on the agenda that I checked in a few minutes ago. Wasn't on the agenda for Monday. And I don't know, is anyone on the call who have any further information than I do on Mondays as a possible day of vote? Okay, so what we're proposing is to create a tweet storm around the whole issue of the permanent form, and to use the tweets, okay, PFPAD.
So what's the budget that you have, what's the budget that you're working with?
We're not working with any budget, Andrew.
Then in the next 7 minutes, maybe we can wind this up.
Okay. So we're at a close at 8:30.
Well, I just like to be very effective with my time. So unless there's something other than the agenda item, then yes.
Okay, then fine. One of the things that we're going to do in this coming week is put in place the original schedule for UNESCO, okay, and the 7 o'clock calls for UNESCO. And can you look at the agenda for EdFu in the coming week? We're cleared through 7 through 8, right?
We're cleared through 7 through 8 through August the 28th of 2021.
All right. So we're going to give, we're going to go in this coming week back to our original plan of action, which is the EdFu UNESCO through the 28th to set the leadership call from 7 to 8. Okay. And then we're going to switch over to the general plan, okay, that's hosted by AHIABGA
Well,
on the,
I can host a second call as well. I'm just saying to you that your question was from 7 to 8. I did leave room for an additional 2 hours if that's necessary, except on those days when there's a conflict. You have to just let me know in advance.
okay, well, that's one of the things that we will set over the next 24 hours for this coming week. Because one of the agenda items was just to do that, is to set, okay, this coming week's agenda. So let me go down to the agenda as posted. From now on, everybody on the call will get an agenda that will have these seven, will have the points of the agenda. Today is the update on the permanent forum on people of African descent. I just posted in the chat that which is what we are posting. Okay, and that was agreed on. Fight racism, hashtag fight racism, with a hashtag permanent forum now, in the hashtag vote for UN permanent PAD form in a UN General Assembly Monday, August 2nd, for a permanent forum on people of African descent, hashtag PFPAD. Now the hashtag PFPAD is before that, is because people don't know what it stands for, is that we're putting in permanent forum on people of African descent. That's what we're using. That's the statement that we are using for Twitter accounts. That's the statement. The PFPAD is what we're using for Instagram, Facebook, etc., to represent the permanent forum on people of African descent. That also goes along with the letter that we will be posting tonight, is the PFPAD sign-on letter of Saturday, July 31st. In his Juneteenth message, President Biden stated Juneteenth is a day of profound weight and power, a day in which we remember the moral stain and terrible toll of our country, of slavery on our country, what I've long called America's original sin, a long legacy of systematic racism, inequality, and inhumanity. In spite of those remarks, it seems the Biden administration has opted to continue that legacy by delaying a crucial vote to establish a United Nations permanent forum on people of African descent this past Thursday, July 29th. This permanent forum would represent over 1.6 billion people of African descent around the world, including 30 million plus voters in the United States of America, voters for whom President Biden credits his 2020 victory. The vote was an opportunity for the Biden administration to heal, hope, and emerge from our darkest moments with purpose and show resolve that a future for African Americans is part of an unprecedented American revival as envisioned by Presidential Executive Order 13985, issued on day one of the Biden-Harris presidency. Executive Order 13985, officially entitled Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Underserved Communities through the Federal Government, is the first executive order signed by U.S. President Joe Biden on January 20th, 2021. It purports to advance racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. We ask, how can that be true with the actions of the U.S. mission to the United Nations last Thursday? Until those actions, we drew on what the president said on the 100th anniversary on the Tulsa race massacre, quote, "Great nations don't ignore the most painful chapters of their past. Great nations confront them. We come to terms with them," unquote. Despite these words, the actions of the U.S. mission to the United Nations do not measure up. A permanent forum on people of African descent is the most appropriate and vital mechanism with which to bring coherence to a host of instruments that have been tried and tested through the United Nations and sometimes through other international arrangements. Structural and systematic anti-Black racism manifests it in the global climate crisis, the global public health crisis, state violence, economic inequality, and various other markers of human life. Not only is it time to create intergovernmental and civil society coherence to address the broad swath of issues affecting people of African descent, it is the best way for the United Nations to ensure that it is indeed a relevant international body, current and willing to address issues that have reached a breaking point. We know that the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union wield outsized power in the General Assembly. That is why it is even more troubling that a crucial vote to advance the permanent forum has been delayed, jeopardizing the strength of the forum. We need these countries to live up to their rhetoric on racial justice and show the world that they are ready to commit in word and deed. In the United States, we need Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield to speak boldly about the U.S. commitment to advancing the interests of Black people. On July 13th, 2021, the U.S. Secretary of State issued a press statement entitled U.S. Leadership on Human Rights and Ending Systematic Racism. It said, quote, "This administration is deeply dedicated to addressing racial injustice and inequalities at home and abroad. On the global stage, the United States is leading by example," unquote. Was the actions last Thursday an example of the leadership we can expect from a Biden-Harris administration? We need the Congressional Black Caucus to be vocal in its support for Black people, not only domestically, but from around the world. The Congressional Black Caucus is at its strongest position ever, with 6 House chairmanships, including Foreign Affairs, Agriculture, Homeland Security, and Finance. We need our elected leadership from the House to the Senate, lifting their voices in support of the permanent forum without delay. We need the 191 co-sponsors in the House to HR 40, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act, to stand with us. The last 4 years, we've watched as the U.S. has receded from international influence. This is a prime opportunity to assert that the United States is willing to lead the charge for human rights, justice, and a mechanism in the United Nations to further economic empowerment of people of African descent, period.
Thank you.
The link to that is in the chat, and that is the document that of 732 words. I was trying for 700 that we would be putting into the news cycle. Questions? Comments?
How can we access this text that you have just presented so that we could attempt to get them on some of Africa's tabloids?
It's coming to you right now in the chat.
Thank you very much.
It's in the chat, and plus email me.
Okay, yeah, sure.
You email me and I'll send it to you directly.
Thank you, thank you.
But we're going to make that a sign-on letter.
No problem, no problem.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Herschel, the sign-on letter, is that the same or tantamount to holding them accountable?
It's the organizations that we had on the call Friday okay, including the leadership of the human and civil rights that says it represents 200 organizations.
Well, I
All
think
right, the
the
leadership
answer,
conference.
the answer to Don's question is that, Don, it's necessary for us to include the language in the document to hold them accountable. Otherwise, the information will not be in the document. That's why I'm sharing it with you now.
Yeah, yeah. So the whole idea
Thanks,
of
Andrew.
Wade Henderson and the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, they were on the call Friday. I sent to the working group for that to have this meeting today at 7 p.m. That's why it was the lead item. And that's why I just asked for the ACLU, who, as I'm a member, our organization is a member of the U.S. Human Rights Network. And so with the U.S. Human Rights Network and the ACLU took the George Floyd, and I know how we did that with 670 groups. So when we had the conference call yesterday, I pointed that out, that we have a model to go for to bring it to the forefront, and that we would take responsibility of putting the social media campaign together. So I drafted the interim letter yesterday. We had input from others, okay, that letter that you have seen as of 7 a.m. this morning has been posted to all those who want to be part of that, including the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights as of yesterday. They're not here today, okay? And so as a consequence, we're following through with what we said we were going to do, which is to make this the request for Sunday to start a 7-day campaign that we would hope that on Monday that the United States would do the right thing, because there's a campaign, a flood of Twitter over the next 48 hours around this, but that we will definitely, to make this go into the news cycle, that again, Africa as nations, Nigeria stood up in the General Assembly and said specifically to the United States, you are trying to kill this motion. Okay. And so we don't know what the United States is going to do on Monday if there's going to be a vote. But we do know that on August 8th, that the United Nations has the Indigenous Peoples Day. And we do know with EdFu and New Future Foundation that as in consultative status, that we can create a global platform to make sure that the world knows what the United States has or has not done by that day.
And for scheduling purposes, as you know, in order to access the ECOSOC calendar, you must submit the request in a timely manner. So if you're talking about August the 8th, then unless you have it in the next 24 hours, that won't happen.
Yeah, well, that's in the next 24 hours, it will happen because they close it on Monday, on the 2nd. Yes. Because Andrew, because we had already opened it with New Future Foundation on April 29th. Okay, so we already have standing in the in Indigenous Peoples Forum to set the closure on August 8th.
In that case, I would ask you to limit your comments to the New Future Foundation, not EdFu, unless I've authorized it or it has been authorized.
And that's what I've done. Okay, and so in terms of over the next 24 hours to bring EdFu up to speed on what we are proposing in that closure. And so in that closure, that statement that I just read to you would be part of the record of that closure that would be given to the presiding officer of the Indigenous Peoples Forum on August 8th.
Then your protocol would be to submit that to the EDFU Board of Directors. EDFU is through me, I'm providing the platform, but I'm not here representing the Board of Directors. That has to be in writing, and paperwork moves money.
And again, it is, I was waiting for the others in the International Decade of People of African Descent Working Group, of which we are part of. And so I will now reach out to EDFU with this. And as part of Sheldon last week came into the working group as EDFU and said in support of that. So a letter will be going out to Sheldon as well as the other members of the working group in support of this action.
Well, the weekend is the best time to reach Sheldon because, of course, he may be on the sea next week.
I understand. All right. So housekeeping items that we went through. I will say that the work that we did in Kansas City that we're going to, that I was going to use on the update for civil society plan of action. We're going to hold that over till tomorrow for the presentation from what went on with the World Conference of Mayors, Historic Black Towns and Settlements in Kansas City till tomorrow. The update on the Universal Periodic Review of the USA, which is tied to that, will also be tomorrow. I've already talked about Executive Order 13985. We will hold over till tomorrow the UN Food Summit update. So that has the, in light of Kansas and the Food Summit update that's coming. Let me say that we've been given permission in August to run our own series of events around the upcoming September UN Food Summit. And in terms of COP26 and UNESCO, like I said at the beginning of this, I was not able to get a hold of Guy today. And so the United Nations Climate Change Conference, which is known as COP26. So I will have to hold that conversation over till tomorrow because I've not spoken to, like Andrew said, you speak to your authority in the relationship. So I'll find out from Guy tomorrow. With that, we've covered the agenda except for laying out the next 7 days, which tomorrow is food and around food, which has to do with the Food Summit, has to do with the USDA, has to do with what happened in Kansas and civil society. Monday is we're going to release the updated Black Folks Plan for the in line with the reparations in the COBRA and in line with the Human Rights Council. Then on Tuesday, we're going to talk about the business that some of the issues that we talked about today, communications. We talked about MROs. We talked about finance. We're talking about, we're going to dive into those issues publicly on Tuesday. Wednesday, we're going to talk about, as Andrew pointed out in the share, in terms of health, digital health data. And Don, when you were asking about the World Conference of Mayors event and follow up to the World Conference of Mayors in the Gambia, let me say that we had that conversation with Dr. Aaron Krantz, who is the vice president of that. So me and Dr. Aaron Krantz and Gabo had that conversation. And so I'll talk to you about that offline, but we had the agreement in place that is going to generate by Wednesday the framework that I'll be able to talk about publicly, but I'll talk to you about that offline.
Okay.
You have my email and my phone number.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, I do. And let me say, and that's great. And what I also recommend is certain things, try to keep the groups as small as possible. And we'll certainly should talk more about that. But if we work within a group that where each person is a doer and they have a specific talent that they're bringing to that group, we'll get a lot of things done. So the group you just mentioned, you, Dr. Aaron Krantz, Dr. Gabo, again, and I'm putting a piece together so that I can get as much of his doctors that he's involved with. So I'm actually gonna draw a plan so we can make some things happen. So, but you know, but let's keep certain things real tight, because when a whole lot of people, you know, just try to have ideas, then I'm sure you know what happens after that.
Yeah, well, again, you know, I had planned to expand it based on our previous conversation, the work that I'm doing with Andrew, as he pointed out, in terms of his memorandum of understanding is already in place. And so, yeah, these committees will not have any more than 7 people on them.
Good.
Okay, and this was laid out when the African Diaspora Directorate and the memorandum of understanding between Friends of the African Union, Sons and Daughters of Africa, Cleo Miller's UNIA, and the Black Wall Street Cooperative in 2019. And so we updated it in 2020 when we went to meet with the State Department on January 27th on the interagency task force on the Universal Periodic Review. And so when we laid it out, is that in the Secretariat, that each standing committee would have a tight core committee group, and within that context, take responsibility for doers for their charter. And so we laid that out and updated it. Okay.
Herschel,
Yes.
you're done.
All right. We're past time. All right.
Yeah, can I just add one remark since we have your attention? So that was one of the reasons why Andrew, myself, Michael was trying to coordinate with you so that we could actually have a real core that can talk about certain things and get some things done, just so you'll know.
So that'll
All
be
right.
Monday. That'll be Monday, Michael, at the latest, because as we meet with if His Excellency Sharif Balday can join us at 7 o'clock his time, as I mentioned to you, Michael, the intent is for us to have not just an action plan, but also a money plan. So Monday at 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So thank you all for your time. Okay. And so as Andrew points out, it can't be recovered, and the time is up for this particular time. And so that we'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have any questions, you can email me at herschel.daniels@africandiasporadirectorate.org. You know the chat. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And this call is now ended.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.